Hey, Joseph and Sarah, Jeff Allen here. I'm just starting to watch your thing on the. I made a comment on the merger and acquisition thing about semantics and TransPerfect, saying that actually 2 3 weeks ago I made a video walking down the street. Well, I was doing it down the street and then I couldn't transfer from my iPhone to my computer, so I actually did it at the office finally because it was just faster to redo it at the office, right when got to the office. But I talked about how had another recent acquisition with MT actually with Accolade and Ubiquitous. I talked about that, but I talked about from a perspective of having I've been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions situations in the language industry and not in the language industry, actually in telecom, where the telco industry is just really heavy as well. Um, and I've done that. I've been involved in this in like 20 years. I've been through lots of and business analytics and financial software. I've been through that even at SAP. SAP has a lot of acquisitions. I've been actually on the onboarding team of the multiple acquisitions, so I've been kind of really involved in that. And so I kind of give that video, which it's a separate video. So watch that. Um, I think it's called comments on UBQs and Accolade, right? Probably should rename it to make it a little easier to find. Um, I didn't even say the word M&A in the title. Darn, I need to change that and put a tag on it, right? Keyword. Um, but now I started watching the video and the replay. I didn't know that you were doing that talk. I would have attended as I could make it. But now you're talking specific with TransPerfect, and then with semantics, and it was just a completely different acquisition. I want to get because I worked at TransPerfect, right, when it was a small company. Well, it was only 700 or 800. I was there in 2007, 2008, and they were already doing lots of acquisitions, okay, and European acquisitions. So I want to add another thing about the Nordic industry, the Nordic stuff, because they actually do have Nordic stuff and they've had it already. Okay, so I want to kind of give a little extra added stuff on this, right? So, um, so let's cover first the Nordic part, right? So Johan Hook has been at TransPerfect, translation.com, for he was there when I got there in 2007. I arrived in 2007 in March, and he had been there less than a year, about a year. He's based in Sweden, okay, um, and he had worked at several of the big players, okay, other big players before that in Nordic countries, okay, so the Nordic, Scandinavia. So, so and then they brought him on, and he has been there for the past, at least 15 years. So TransPerfect has had, and he kind of plays the regional. I think he's got a regional kind of business direct, regional sales kind of thing right now. That's his role. So he's kind of involved in this, right? And he's to stay at TransPerfect that long on that kind of focusing on it's territorial. Okay, it's territorial. The whole thing. To be able to do that and stay along that long means you got to do well, right? So it's not that they didn't have Nordic presence, Scandinavian presence. They did already, and by people that were established in the industry, really already established in the industry for a long time. So, so it wasn't that reason. At least that's not a reason. To build it more and to get more traction, yeah, okay. So I'd say it from that point of view. But not to say that they got to start it, right? Or to start getting interested in it, because it was already there and has been there. From another point of view, and TransPerfect tends to, acquire pretty successful stuff, right? They don't. TransPerfect does not acquire underachievers, right? Because like you said, Joseph, you know, they tend to keep overachievers. From that whole American perspective, they keep those kind of salespeople, and they do treat people really well. If you want to get in that mindset, okay, in a certain way, in a certain way, uh, and so So that kind of whole thing is there. Now I want to take it from another angle. Up, they've had European acquisitions, lots of them. Okay, you just got to know them. You got to really study it out, right? And and I've been following them for the years because even after I left, I said they're 2 years, but I've kind of followed it, and there were so many acquisitions in Europe during the 2 years I was there. Okay, I'm not kidding here. Um, that just the time I was there. Okay, they got Alchemy Catalyst. Okay, during the time I was there. Believe me, we were all jumping on that one immediately. Tony O'Dowd, visual localization. Making the complex simple was the little slogan, right? So that was just wow. That was a sales thing. Okay. Um, they also got Overtal, which is based in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. In the Netherlands, I'm not sure if it's Amsterdam. And that was the only SAP certified translation company that's in TransPerfect, right? Maybe there's another one now, but SAP is kind of really specific about who they take. They don't take multi vendors like that. Okay, not at all. They take you got to be specialized, and you got to be. It's a really tough to get. I'm going to say this, and people call me all the time. Hey, we got certified SPM. It's really tough. It's really tough. I turn away people and just say, hey, go read the web pages and be ready for a long haul. Okay, because I've trained teams to become development teams, acquisitions to go through the acquisitions to go through the whole development process to become fully product standard certified. And believe me, it's hard, and all the partners have to go through that too. So yeah, so there are times where you kind of at a point of diminishing returns, you have to do it and continue with it. Let's say it that way. So people like to call me, and I kind of like to say, think about it twice, right? Because it's a really heavy investment. But Overtal had already been certified as SAP, right? So that was just like a major added value. Okay. Other ones, they actually got they actually took another acquisition, actually based in Germany. I can't remember the name of it. Actually, no, the Netherlands. It was doing a certain kind of script writing and stuff, and it was kind of a small little thing. Oh no, it was a partnership. That was a partnership. There was a partnership with that, but they actually didn't do the acquisition. They took a specialized localization company. I think it was called ISP. Got to remember. Small team, really focused on software localization. That happened during the 2 years I was there too. Really good team. I remember doing a big deal, arranging a really big deal, and I signed it the day I left, right? And that acquisition was going to do the work. Okay. I don't want to say the name of the company that we did, and I don't want to see even the name of the software it was, but that was a big deal. Okay. That was a pretty hefty one. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head other ones, just in Europe. Okay. So, TransPerfect hasn't just acquired American companies. Okay, no, they acquire things that are good, and you got to look. Hey, look at the whole thing. They actually got they got a lot of people from the Lionbridge technology side of the thing. They brought them on that were the people down in Nice, right, down in Sophia Antipolis, who were a whole bunch of people from Lionbridge, right, technologies, and they got them into TransPerfect, right. That was a big deal several years ago. Um, um, who were some other things? Um, there have been just the production hubs. Okay, now when I was in transfer 2007 2008, there were only it moved. I mean, it was growing so quickly that it went from like 500 to 800 people internally, um, in at TransPerfect during the 2 years I was there. Okay, so from 500 to 800, about that kind of range of number of people, right? Um, Today it's 7,000. Okay, 7,000. That's tenfold. Okay, and the number of people they said are just in Barcelona. Okay, just Barcelona. Maybe in Spain, but Barcelona, Spain. Okay, it might actually be all of Spain, but Barcelona, 700 people right now. So the number of people that were the entire company back in 2007 between 2007 are the number of people actually employed just in Barcelona by the company right now. Okay, because of the acquisitions. Okay, um, yeah, there was some organic growth, but a lot of the growth from transfer comes from the acquisitions and then building that and then selling it and selling it. Okay, they did a lot. So they got a lot of dubbing companies, a lot getting the media, multimedia stuff. Recently, well, not really just recently, but I kind of been watching. So they've been getting a lot of these dubbing studios and kind of stuff, getting all the kind of media, multimedia stuff, a lot more. Um, so Spain has like grown like crazy, right, as a production hub, um, and so that's a lot, right? Uh, and and so that's it's not just um, the American, and these are production facilities, right? So a lot of these are production. I mean, there's some of the sales you have salespeople, but the production facilities are European, right? They're not European. I'm sorry, I got to make a joke out of that one, right? Um, so this is there has been a lot of growth, right? And they had there have been a lot of people that doing having some lots of. I mean, we hired people. I remember hiring people that from even that came customer. I mean, there are all kinds of people that were working with us, and we had a lot of Europeans, that were joining to do it, and that was it was kind of interesting to see that. And I'm kind of a hybrid, I'm kind of a hybrid. I'm American, but I'm really kind of half French. Um, I've been here long enough that's just married into it, right? And had kids grown up in it, and I'm fully integrated in the culture. So I'm as French you can get, right? For a non-native speaker. Um, I did my studies here and stayed on and worked here, got married here, and everything. I mean, so it's in every walk of life. I just can do pretty much anything, but do French cooking. Okay, okay, let's say it that way. Um, Wine tasting, kind of good at that, right? But so there has been a lot of there has been a real TransPerfect has done, and I said this in my last video. I'll say it again here. TransPerfect has done it very well when they onboard the key here, okay, is not whether or not the company is European or whatever. That's not the key. The key is, do they have something that the salespeople, the wolves of the sales machine, TransPerfect, can sell? Okay, because once you plug that thing into the ecosystem, the salespeople are on it and they're selling like to death. And I mean, I did this, and I was touching francophone territory in it, and I was selling all kind of stuff. And I can touch any field, right? Because I was selling medical device translation, because we have the medical device division over in the States. I was selling visual localization. I was selling content management, and the plugins for the global link system, and I was selling uh, was aiming to sell the web version of the terminology kind of glossary kind of thing. So and hey, WordFast. Now WordFast is not quite an active. I mean, it's kind of a partner thing, right? But it's kind of really closely, because there was a white paper on it in 2008 on authoring translation memories, and WordFast is mentioned, right? So and the whole global link suite went to a TMXL, um, TXML. Was it TXML? Yeah, it was TXML. Um, Translation XML. I actually made some posts about this on pros.com, right? Back in about 2009, and it was around the whole time when the whole WordFast stuff, and the whole actually the WordFast the the new version, right? There's the classic version, which is Word, right? So macro, right? The Yves Champollion, French guy, okay, doing this in the French suburbs, right? Yves a cool guy. I know him pretty well. Um, he they made the pro version of it, right? And the pro version was basically the XML based one, right? So the whole thing was to make sure that that could be completely compatible with Global Link Suite, and that included the visual localization from Alchemy Catalyst and all kinds of stuff. So I made some posts on this up on, just look at TXML up on pros.com and you'll find my name. MT Post Editing is my alias, right? And I made a bunch of statements. I clarified some things because it was kind of like not real clear, right? So WordFast was another, partnership, close partnership, and there was a lot of investment to make all that stuff happen, right? Technology wise, just trying to think of some other, and you got some Europeans too. So you got like Keith Brazil, who came with the eTranslate acquisition, but he's from Ireland, right? So computational linguist from Ireland, and he came on, and so he's got the mindset. He's lived in the States for a long time, but he's still European, right? And and then Barnaby Was in production there in Barcelona is like he's French and British, right? Kind of, but grew up in both, right? So he's adapted, or he's got the thing. He's got the thing for the American stuff, but still European guy. And they do have like Julian Didier in the production, the technology over in the US. He's French, so these are the kind of folks I worked with, right, regularly for pitch and stuff. I worked with the Europeans, right, even if they're based in the US. I worked with the Europeans to pitch to the European enterprises, right, and we did a good job on this, okay, trying to do it. We didn't always win it, but we did a good job. And even if we didn't win the RFP, I still got the customers because they kept coming back for better quality, right? So, and then the team that was for Alchemy Catalyst, just a great team in Ireland. I mean, just great team. All of them. I mean, I would sit down and we'd sit there and I bring them some really tough stuff, right? Some tough situations, really tough stuff, and I'd draw it all out. We'd meet during the sales conferences together. All the other people kind of drinking and stuff. We'd be sitting in the hotel lobby drawing diagrams and doing the geeky stuff. How are we going to do this one, right? How are we going to this one, Jeff? This is kind of hard when you haven't seen this in the hard yet. He kind of brings the really interesting ones, right? Because I didn't need pre-sales people. I kind of do it all myself, right? So to walk in and figure it all out. Big companies, right? So yeah. The big for the customers, the prospects. Sorry, I'm coughing. So what I'd say is, again, it's not about whether the company is European versus American. That's not it. It's going to be, do they have do they have a service, a product or service that can be sold to death? Okay, and that the salespeople, the sales force, okay, not Salesforce, but the sales force, okay, not the data force because he's called data force, but the sales force can actually understand and sell fast and well. Okay, I'll say that's how it is. And if it's kind of too complicated for the normal Joe or Jane to sell, and it takes a little more kind of effort to understand how it works, then that doesn't get sold, right? But if something that people can really sell pretty easily, and to explain it in a 30-second pitch over the phone, and they get the appointment, and then do it in person with a suit. I wear a suit every day. I didn't wear all these T-shirts and stuff. I wear a suit every day. Made cold calls all the time, and they had a suit on. I had to go meet the customers every time. Hey, want to meet today? Hey, do it, right? Yeah, all in French. Okay. But that was the thing. If you can really sell it, then that just integrates the company immediately, because the company just like grows like crazy, right? Then they don't have enough production people to do the work. That's the hard thing. It depends on how fast it can be sold. It depends on how fast it can be understood, buy the entire workforce of this of their selling machine, and then bam, I'll say it that way. Um, if it's hard to understand, hard to explain, or it's not completely, yeah, if it isn't a plug-in thing, right? So, or if you got to kind of have customized stuff, or if it gets too complicated, then it's too hard to sell, right? So, kind of depends. And then look at all the whole AI stuff. You had had Diego from God, I can't remember the name of the company. It was MT, right? So they brought him on. They acquired him, but he ended up leaving. But that turned into kind of their AI division, their whole artificial intelligence division. Now that's kind of being run by other people in Europe, actually. So it's not the states folks that are kind of running the show on that one, right? Um, maybe I should apply, all right? Go back again. I need to, so, but the thing is there are TransPerfect has done pretty well with their acquisitions. Okay, they've treated them well, um, and they push the salespeople to sell it. You know, they acquire. They don't want this thing that's kind of sitting there doing nothing, because all these companies have to become autonomous business units with the sales folks just selling it. Okay, so they all become production centers, right? And that causes growth and causes more offices. So the more acquisitions you do, the more offices you got, and so you can cover, and you can say that you got more offices, more countries. Look at the number of offices that they say that they've got. Um, how many countries they're in, because all these acquisitions, right? Um, so and every time they start up a new office, it's not always an organic, just created office. It's usually an acquisition that they can convert it into another. It's another location. So there are some that are set up from scratch, um, but a lot of them tend to come from the acquisitions as well. So it gives them more presence, global presence, right? Um, so I think there's a lot of that to take into consideration of this whole thing of the acquisition aspects of it. And if you think about, there wasn't a whole lot of activity in Asia when I was there. Um, I mean, there was, but there was a bit, but that can be a lot of serious growth, right? And I think that there's a whole, I'd say there's a whole market of a lot of different things you can do. Um, but they've been focused on certain segments, right? There are certain segments they haven't been they haven't been focusing on, and they actually have a department that just focuses on M&A, right? This is all it does: prospecting, and then I won't say the person's name, right? So, but or maybe not the same person, but I think it is. But this is what they do, right? They actually have got this. They've actually got a tool. They've actually got a product called deal management or something, if I can remember the name of it. And it's actually for due diligence of mergers and acquisitions. They actually have a product that they sell that does this, right? That does the due diligence process of, sorry, of mergers and acquisitions. When you go through the whole due diligence process and all the kind of the investigation checks and all that, there's a tool, a product that's sold to companies that go through mergers and acquisitions, and so they got this product too. So it's easy to kind of, hey, drink your own champagne and use it, right? They've got a whole industry of like providing services, of providing recruitment for all these different services and stuff. They obviously have a recruitment kind of branch, um, doing all kinds of stuff. So it's a growth machine, right? Um, and there are things that are not focused on. So the whole machine translation thing took a long time to kind of take off. I know that really well. I know that whole. I kind of followed that kind of closely because I was involved in it, right? That took a long time to kind of get off the ground. Um, and now it's called Data Force, right? There. Um, there's the whole, like I said, media and subbing, dubbing, and all that. That's kind of got big. They were kind of interesting. They had they actually had a dictation. They had a translator that would just dictate, do translation cognitively, and then dictate it through a dictaphone, right? And that person had personal assistance typing in the target language, right? Um, and that they could put out record amounts of content, record. Okay, and I did the survey stuff for a multilingual magazine, right? Wrote an article in 2003 about it. I can't remember if it was 2002, 2003. It was in 2000. It was 2000. I think it was in 2003. 2003 or 2004. It was called translation content management versus translation speed. Yeah, that was the name of the article in Multilingual Magazine back in that time frame, right? Um, and I actually did a survey of all the companies, different organizations at the time, about 60 different organizations, customers that were kind of in different places that were doing production, kind of getting the idea of how, what's the translation speed, what's the average translation speed, right? Um, the magical number to 25, 2,500 words was the kind of the answer. It came down to be 2,400 and something, right? That was my final exact number, but based on all the conversions I had to do, all these different things between pages and words and sentences and lines and everything, got down to that many words. Um, but there is a whole, this. Um, it's kind of amazing that they've got. Trying to remember what I was going to say. I forgot the idea because I said this thing about multilingual magazine. Um, so they got dubbing. So there are things that they've kind of focused on, and things they're not focused on. So it's like the things that have not taken off the ground, right? So things that we see that did not really develop further, like the authoring kind of controlled language thing called Abreve, ABREVE, based in the team was in Boston, Massachusetts, and so some of the people that are kind of involved in that was Hans Furstenmacher, right, and Valery Rushanin, um, and they went on, and I think for that question, it's just people didn't know how to sell it, right? You got to know how to sell controlled language, and I wanted it, right, but it just wasn't quite where I needed when I was there. I needed a product. I didn't need just a service. I needed a product. I need something that was productized. And it wasn't quite productized enough. And there were products in the market elsewhere. So and I know that field really well because I spent first 10 years of my career doing that stuff, right? So um, so that really never took off the ground a lot, right? So but then all the plugins they spend a lot on doing plugins of Global Link. So that's gotten a lot to get the translation, their translation globalization management system or translation management system, what do you want to call this thing, to kind of be useful in lots of context. So lots of stuff to have the plugins with different CMI content management systems was a key thing, right? So that was kind of a big effort. So there's a lot of that, and a lot of partnerships kind of happening around that, right? So that was kind of a key thing. Um, they got in the MT thing with World Lingo for a couple of reasons, but I'm not going to go to those. Um, and then Diego came in later, right? Years later. Um, and then just, but again, lots of European stuff, not always American. Actually, World Lingo. If I can't remember. They've all based in. Is that the one that was based in Australia? Yeah. See, so It really depends on where the market is. And if you look at like the Asian market, like Japan is really I mean, Japan's kind of an interesting case, right? Because it's so much need for um, translation and interpretation. It's just a huge need. Um, I kind of work on these things, right? So, um, and uh, and so wouldn't be surprised if there's a little more, movement in the Asian area, right? Kind of the Asia Pacific area, Pacific Rim. There might be things there more, and I haven't been following all the things they're doing, but I mean they've grown sevenfold, tenfold in 15 years, right? So tenfold. Um, so this is just a huge machine. Um, and But it's not all U.S. Okay, actually, it's probably a minority now is U.S. It's U.S. owned, right? But U.S. owned does not mean um, U.S. mentality everywhere, right? It's U.S. It's a sales mentality, yeah. And there's a lot of push, and the American, but see, it's very territorial too. You got to be careful. So the whole sales thing is all very territorial. Um, you can't sell in your territories than yours, right? So I was in France. I was not allowed to sell to the States, right? Where that what I would just like rocked, right? I was allowed to give transfer leads, referrals, transfer referrals, right? There was actually one where I got called in. A few of them I actually got called in to kind of help on, right? So, because there's just some things you can't not let Jeff be involved in, right? So, and some things where I want to make sure I got the deal, right? I didn't just transfer it and let somebody else kind of take it, right? Um, I want it to be done right. So my reputation's on the line. I'm gonna make sure I'm involved to the end. So I don't care if I get half the commission. It's gonna happen the way I want it to happen, right? So, um, with getting done with the expertise, because when I was doing stuff on the U.S. side, or I was at least bringing in some customers U.S. side, I want to make sure that it was treated full, full um, um, knowledge and expertise on the topics, right? So I didn't want to transfer to somebody that was going to kind of screw it over, right? So, um, I'm not saying people are bad. I'm just saying there are people that know topics and how to sell certain things, and there are people that don't know how to do that. And I want to make sure then that when I was bringing in some prospects, that I was there until the end, right? Until it actually got implemented, and even yeah. So and there are some things where I said no. I said to people, I said the salespeople don't go this direction on this thing, because that's gonna what the customer wants is completely wrong. Um, so I mean, and I talked in another video about that too. In my atypical, I think it was on my atypical and machine translation kind of situations, right? So there's some that you just don't touch. Um, but so TransPerfect again has presence. It has understanding how to deal with other other countries and acquisitions of those companies, how to treat them, how to sell them, um, and and TransPerfect has a very good reputation, as I said in my previous video on this, of treating their M&A, they're treating their acquisitions in a way that just really makes them grow. So they've got something right in the formula, right? The chemistry of the recipes, right? So I think that's my thoughts on it, um, yeah, feel free to reach out if you want anything more, some thoughts on it. So, but I just want to respond to this, and there's at least this one part I haven't watched your whole replay, right? But I want to give a little more insight in this, because a lot of this is kind of, you got to know this, right? You got to know it. And I'm trying to say I'm trying to say things that I know can I say, right? I'm trying to keep friends, right? Keep not from saying things even at 15 years after. I just like to keep my allies, right? So that's really good. Or it's not even negative to say. I just don't want to say anything that is going to get people mad at me. So for saying something. So yeah. So um, this is TransPerfect is this is gonna go great with semantics. It should. There's no reason for it not to. Um, and they've got an winning offering that makes can grow, and it's always doing well. There's no reason not to do better, right? Um, what we're all waiting for is what's the next one, right? What's the next acquisition? So I got some thoughts on that too, but that'll be for next time, right? Jeff Allen out.